Commander Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Earth's main space station. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he did not notice. The screens in front of him showed nothing but empty space where alien ships should be flying. For 3 days now, not a single message had come from any of the alien races that humans call friends. "Sir, we're still getting nothing from the Zephyrian Trade Consortium," said Lieutenant Amy Foster. She sat at her control panel, trying different radio frequencies. No signals at all. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. The Zephyrians were their closest allies. They traded with Earth every week. Their ships were always busy moving goods between star systems. Now there was only silence. Dr. Lisa Park walked into the command center. She looked worried. "Commander, I've tried every communication method we know. Quantum channels, subspace radio, even old-fashioned light signals. Nothing is working. It's like every alien civilization just disappeared." Jake had been afraid she would say that. 3 days ago, everything was normal. The galaxy was full of busy alien worlds, trading ships, and friendly messages. Earth had good relationships with dozens of different species. Some were strange, like the crystalline collective who lived in giant crystal formations. Others were more familiar, like the Altarians who looked almost human. What about Captain Brooks? Any word from his ship? Jake asked. Amy checked her screens. The U.S. Horizon is still heading to the nearest Altarian world. They should arrive in 6 hours. Captain Ryan Brooks was leading a small team to investigate what had happened. His ship, the Horizon, was fast and well-armed. If anyone could find answers, it would be Ryan. Jake looked at the star map on the main screen. Red dots marked all the places where they had lost contact with alien friends. There were 47 red dots. 47 civilizations that had gone quiet at almost the same time. Dr. Park, do we have any theories about what could cause this? Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. Nothing makes sense. For all these different species to go silent at once, it would take something massive, maybe a new weapon, or some kind of plague that affects electronics. But why didn't it affect us? Amy asked. Human ships and stations are working fine. That was the question that bothered Jake the most. Whatever had happened to the aliens, it had passed right by humanity. Earth was still busy with normal life. Human colonies were still sending messages. Human trade ships were still flying their routes. But every alien world had gone dark. Jake's communicator beeped. Commander, this is Captain Brooks on the Horizon. We're approaching the Altarian home system now. Put him on the main screen, Jake said. Ryan's face appeared on the big display. He looked tense. Behind him, Jake could see the bridge of the Horizon. Ryan's crew was working at their stations, checking sensors and weapons. What do you see, Captain? Jake asked. It's strange, sir. The Altarian worlds are still there. Their cities are still powered up, but there are no ships moving anywhere. No radio signals. No signs of life at all. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Are you detecting any weapons fire? Any signs of battle? Negative. Everything looks normal, except nobody's home. We're going to move closer to their main world and scan for life signs. Be careful, Ryan. We don't know what we're dealing with. Understood, sir. I'll report back in 1 hour. The screen went dark. Jake stared at the empty space where Ryan's face had been. Around him, the command center was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers. Amy turned from her panel. Sir, I'm detecting something strange on the deep space sensors. What kind of strange? There's a pattern in the background energy readings. Like something big passed through this part of the galaxy recently. Really big. Dr. Park moved to Amy's station. Show me the readings. Amy brought up a display full of numbers and wave patterns. See this? 3 days ago, there was a massive energy surge. It moved through the galaxy like a wave. But here's the weird part. It seemed to pass right around human space. Lisa studied the data. This is incredible. Whatever this energy was, it covered thousands of star systems, but it avoided every world and station controlled by humans. Jake joined them at the sensor station. The readings showed a clear pattern. The energy wave had moved through alien space like water flowing around rocks. Human space was the rocks. Could this energy have hurt the aliens somehow? Jake asked. Maybe, Lisa said. But why would it avoid us? What makes humans different? Before anyone could answer, the communicator crackled to life again. It was Ryan's voice, but he sounded shaken. Commander, you need to see this. I'm sending video now. A new image appeared on the main screen. It showed a beautiful alien city on the surface of an Altarian world. The buildings were tall and graceful, designed for the Altarians' for arms and long necks. Streets wound between the structures like rivers. But the streets were empty. No vehicles moved. No Altarians walked on the sidewalks. Windows that should have shown busy aliens going about their daily lives were dark. We're scanning the largest city, Ryan said. Population should be about 2 million, but we're detecting 0 life signs. Not just no Altarians, no animals, no plants, nothing alive at all. Jake stared at the empty city. It looked like everyone had just vanished. Buildings stood perfect and undamaged. Street lights were still on, but there was no one there. Ryan, can you scan some of the buildings? Look for signs of what happened. Already on it, sir. We're sending down scanning drones now. The wait felt like hours, but it was only minutes before Ryan spoke again. Commander, this doesn't make sense. We found clothes and personal items scattered around, but no bodies. It's like every living thing just disappeared. Amy gasped. Sir, I'm getting similar reports from our other scout ships. The Zephyrian worlds, the crystalline systems, they're all empty. Everything gone except the buildings and machines. Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 47 alien civilizations, billions of thinking beings, had vanished without a trace. And somehow, humanity was the only species left unaffected. All ships, return to Earth immediately, Jake ordered. We need to figure out what happened and why we're still here. As the hours passed, more reports came in. Every alien world was the same. Empty cities, abandoned ships, no signs of life. But human space remained normal and busy. Dr. Park worked through the night, analyzing the energy readings. Jake, she said finally, I think this energy wave was designed to target specific types of minds. It found every alien species in the galaxy, but somehow missed us completely. Jake looked out at the stars through the command center windows. Somewhere out there, an entire galaxy had gone silent, and humanity was alone, trying to understand why they had been spared when no one else was. 3 weeks had passed since the galaxy went silent. Dr. Carl Hayes stood in the main research lab on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Tables were covered with ancient artifacts that had been collected from dozens of dead alien worlds. Each piece told the same terrifying story. Look at this, Carl said to the other scientists gathered around him. He held up a stone tablet covered in strange writing. This is from the Zephyrian homeworld, and this one is from an Altarian temple. He picked up another tablet. Different languages, different species, but the same message. Professor Kate Miller leaned closer to examine the tablets. She was Earth's best expert on quantum physics, but lately she had been studying alien languages too. What do they say? Carl's face was grim. When the devourers wake, only the immune shall remain. He set the tablets down carefully. I found this same warning on 12 different worlds. Species that never met each other, writing the same words. Around the lab, other scientists stopped their work to listen. Everyone had been searching for answers about what had happened to their alien friends. Now it seemed they were getting answers they did not want to hear. Kate moved to her own workstation, where screens showed complex energy patterns. I've been studying that wave that passed through the galaxy, she said. It's not like anything we've seen before. The energy operates on frequencies that seem designed to target specific types of brain patterns. Admiral Ben Carter walked into the lab. He was in charge of Earth space military, and he looked tired. Dr. Hayes, what are these devourers you mentioned? Carl picked up more artifacts from the tables. From what I can translate, they were an ancient enemy, something that existed millions of years ago. These warnings were left by civilizations that fought them and lost. But if they were defeated millions of years ago, how are they still a threat? Kate asked. That's what worries me, Carl said. Some of these texts suggest the Devourers weren't destroyed. They were just sleeping. Admiral Carter frowned. Sleeping where? Kate looked up from her screens. According to my energy analysis, they were hiding in the space between dimensions. The quantum readings show tears in reality itself, like something massive pushed through from another level of existence. The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone was thinking about what this meant. An ancient enemy that could hide between dimensions and target specific types of minds. Admiral, Carl said, I think we need to send teams to investigate the alien homeworlds directly. These artifacts only tell us part of the story. Ben nodded. I've already prepared an expedition. Captain Steve Adams will lead it aboard the UES Defiant. They leave tomorrow. The next day, Captain Steve Adams stood on the bridge of his ship as they approached the Zephyrian homeworld. Steve had traded with the Zephyrians many times. Their world was usually busy with traffic, but now it hung in space like a dead rock. Take us into orbit, Steve ordered his crew. I want full scans of every major city. Security Chief Dana White worked at her station, checking the ship's weapons and shields. She had a bad feeling about this mission. Captain, sensors show the planet is completely lifeless. Not even bacteria in the oceans. But the cities are intact. Yes, sir. Everything looks normal, except there's nobody there. Steve studied the images on a screen. The Zephyrian cities were beautiful, with tall spires that reached toward the sky. The aliens had been proud of their architecture. Now the empty buildings looked like tombstones. Dana, take a team down to surface. I want to examine their government buildings and libraries. Maybe we can find records of what happened. Hours later, Dana and her team were walking through the main city on the Zephyrian homeworld. Their boots echoed on empty streets. Zephyrian vehicles sat abandoned where they had stopped. Shops still had their doors open, as if the owners had just stepped out for a moment. This is creepy, said one of Dana's team members. Where did everybody go? Dana led them to the central government building. Inside, they found offices with work still sitting on desks. Computer screens were still on, showing half-finished reports. But there were no Zephyrians anywhere. Look at this, Dana called out. She was standing next to a pile of clothes on the floor. These are Zephyrian work uniforms. But they're just lying here empty. The team searched through more buildings. Everywhere they looked, they found the same thing. Empty clothes, abandoned personal items, but no bodies. It was as if every Zephyrian had simply vanished, leaving their belongings behind. In the main library, Dana found something that made her blood run cold. The library's computer system was still working, and it contained records that the Zephyrians had been updating right until they disappeared. Captain Adams, she said into her communicator, you need to see this. I'm uploading files from their planetary archives. Back on the Defiant, Steve and his crew studied the Zephyrian records. The files showed 3 days of growing panic as the Zephyrians detected something approaching their world. They had tried to send warning messages to other species, but their communications had been cut off. The final entry was the most disturbing. It was a video message from the Zephyrian leader, recorded just hours before the silence began. If anyone finds this record, the alien leader said in the video, know that we tried to prepare. The ancient warnings were true. The enemy has returned, and they hunger for minds themselves. We can feel them approaching. They speak to us in our dreams, promising rest from consciousness. Some of our people are already changing. The video ended abruptly. Steve stared at the dark screen. They hunger for minds? What does that mean? Dana's voice came through the communicator from the planet's surface. Captain, I found something in their archaeological department. The Zephyrians have been studying the same ancient warnings that Dr. Hayes found, but they discovered something else. What? Evidence that this has happened before. Many times. Every few million years, something sweeps through the galaxy and all the intelligent species disappear. Then new civilizations grow up, develop space travel, and the cycle repeats. Steve felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying this is a pattern? It looks that way, sir. And according to these records, there's always one species that gets left behind. One species that's immune to whatever causes the disappearances. Back on Earth, Dr. Carl Hayes was studying the new information from the Defiant. The pieces were starting to form a picture, and it was not a good one. Kate, he called to Professor Miller, look at this data from the Zephyrian archives. They found evidence of previous extinction events. Kate joined him at his workstation. How many? At least 7 in the last 50 million years. Each time, advanced civilizations develop across the galaxy. Then something wipes them all out, leaving only ruins behind. But some species always survive. One species each time. Always just one. And they become the foundation for the next cycle of galactic civilization. Kate stared at the data. Carl, are you suggesting that humans are the survivors of this cycle? I'm suggesting something worse, Carl said quietly. What if humans aren't just the survivors? What if we're connected to these devourers somehow? What if we're immune because we're supposed to be? The thought hung in the air between them. Outside the research station, Earth continued its normal activities. But inside the lab, 2 scientists were beginning to realize that humanity might not be the innocent bystanders they thought they were. Admiral Carter received their report that evening. After reading it, he sat in his office for a long time, staring out at the stars. Tomorrow, he would have to brief Earth's leaders about what they had discovered. The galaxy had gone silent because an ancient enemy had awakened, and somehow humanity was the only species that remained untouched. The question that kept him awake was simple but terrifying. Why were they immune, and what did these devourers want with the rest of the galaxy's minds? Dr. Paul Green had spent his entire career studying the empty spaces between stars. Now, as he stood in his laboratory on Luna Station, he wished he had chosen a different field of science. The quantum readings on his screens showed something that should not exist. Commander Morrison, Paul said into his communicator, you need to come to the lab immediately. I've found traces of the devourers. 20 minutes later, Jake arrived with Dr. Lisa Park and Admiral Carter. Paul's lab was filled with strange machines that measured things most people could not even imagine. Show us what you found, Jake said. Paul pointed to a screen covered with wave patterns. I've been analyzing the quantum residue left behind by that energy wave. It's not from our dimension. These patterns show tears in the fabric of reality itself. What kind of tears? Lisa asked. The kind that something uses to travel between dimensions. But here's the scary part. The residue contains traces of consciousness. Not just energy, but actual thoughts and memories. Admiral Carter leaned closer to the screen. Whose thoughts? That's what I was afraid you'd ask, Paul said. The patterns matched the neural signatures of every alien species that disappeared. The Zephyrians, the Altarians, all of them. Their consciousness is somehow mixed into this quantum residue. Jake felt sick to his stomach. Are you saying the aliens weren't just killed? Their minds were taken? Worse than taken. Consumed. These devourers don't just destroy life. They eat consciousness itself. They feed on thoughts, memories, and the very essence of what makes a being intelligent. In space, Commander Sam Mitchell was leading another expedition to investigate dead alien worlds. His ship, the U.S. Explorer, had visited 6 different systems in the past week. Each one told the same horrible story. Captain, called a science officer, we're detecting something unusual in this system. There's a derelict space station in orbit around the 4th planet. Sam looked at the images on his screen. The station was clearly alien-built, but not from any species they knew. It was ancient, covered with symbols that seemed to hurt his eyes when he looked at them directly. Take us closer, but keep our shields up. I don't like the look of that thing. As they approached the station, Sam's crew began reporting strange readings. The station was old, millions of years old, but parts of it were still active. Energy flowed through alien machines that had been running since before Earth's dinosaurs existed. Sir, said the science officer, I'm detecting organic material on that station, but it's wrong somehow. The biological patterns don't match any known life form. Sam made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. Prepare a boarding party. We need to know what's on that station. 2 hours later, Sam and his team were walking through corridors that seemed to twist reality around them. The walls were covered with the same eye-hurting symbols they had seen from outside. But worse than the symbols were the sounds, soft whispers in languages that predated civilization. Marine Colonel Alex Turner led the security team, his weapon ready. He had fought in 3 different wars, but nothing had prepared him for this place. "Commander, these corridors don't follow normal physics. We've been walking straight for 10 minutes, but my instruments say we've turned in circles." They found the station central chamber, and Sam wished they hadn't. Floating in tanks of dark liquid were creatures that might have once been alien, but had been changed something else. They were still alive, but their minds were clearly gone. Empty eyes stared at nothing while machines fed on their consciousness. "My God," whispered one of Sam's team members. "What are these things?" Sam studied the tanks and the machines connected to them. "I think these are what's left of the original alien species that built this station. Someone or something has been keeping them alive for millions of years, feeding on their minds." Alex discovered a computer terminal that was still working. The language was unknown, but the images it displayed told a clear story. "Commander, you need to see this. It's some kind of historical record." The screen showed images of a great war that had raged across the galaxy millions of years ago. One species, calling themselves the Vorthak, had developed the ability to consume consciousness. They had spread from world to world, not killing their enemies, but turning them into mental slaves. "Look at this," Alex said, pointing to another image. Other species fought back. They built weapons and defenses, but the Vorthak were winning. The record showed the final battle. A coalition of the galaxy's remaining free species had managed to trap the Vorthak between dimensions, but the victory had cost everything. The defending species had to sacrifice themselves to power the prison that held the Devourers. "They knew they were going to die," Sam said quietly, "but they did it to save future civilizations from the Vorthak." Back on Earth, Dr. Nina Ross was studying something that would change everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. She worked in the genetics lab at the Titan Research Complex, and she had been analyzing DNA samples found on alien worlds. "Carl, you need to see this," she called to Dr. Hayes. "I found something impossible in these genetic samples." Carl joined her at the DNA analysis station. What kind of impossible? Nina brought up 2 genetic patterns on her screen. This first sample is from an ancient alien ruin on the Zephyrian homeworld. According to the dating, it's about 10 million years old. She pointed to the second pattern. "This one is human DNA." "I don't understand. How can human DNA be 10 million years old?" "That's just it," Nina said excitedly. "It's not exactly human DNA. It's like a template that human DNA was based on, as if someone took this ancient genetic pattern and modified it to create humans." Carl stared at the patterns. They were similar, but the ancient sample had additional sequences that modern humans did not possess. "Nina, are you suggesting that humans are descended from this ancient alien species?" "I'm suggesting something even stranger. Look at this." She brought up more data. The ancient DNA contains genetic markers that would make the brain resistant to certain types of quantum interference, the same type of interference that the Vorthak use to consume consciousness. The implications hit Carl like a physical blow. "You're saying humans were genetically designed to resist the Devourers?" "More than that, according to these patterns, the original species didn't just create humans as descendants. They created us as weapons. Our brains are specifically designed to fight the Vorthak." Meanwhile, Commander Morrison was receiving the reports from all the expedition teams. Each discovery was more disturbing than the last. The Vorthak were real, they were ancient, and they had returned from their dimensional prison. "Sir," said Amy Foster from her sensor station, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups at the edge of our galaxy. Whatever's out there, it's getting ready to move." Jake looked at the data streaming across his screens. The Vorthak had consumed the minds of every alien species in the galaxy. Now they were preparing for something bigger. Dr. Lisa Park joined him at the command center. "Jake, I've been analyzing the genetic information that Dr. Ross discovered. If she's right, then humans aren't just random survivors of this attack." "What do you mean?" "We're the descendants of the species that originally defeated the Vorthak millions of years ago. They modified their own genetic pattern and hid it on Earth, hoping that someday their descendants would be strong enough to fight the Devourers when they returned. Jake felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. So we're not just the only survivors. We're the weapon that was left behind to stop them. That's what the evidence suggests. Our ancestors sacrificed their entire civilization to create us. They knew the Vorthack would eventually escape their prison, and they wanted to make sure someone would be ready to fight them. Outside the command center windows, Earth continued its peaceful orbit around the sun. But Jake knew that peace was about to end. The Vorthack had fed on 47 alien civilizations, growing stronger with each consumed mind. Now they were ready to finish what they had started millions of years ago. The only thing standing between them and total victory was humanity, a species that had been created for this exact moment, whether they knew it or not. The galaxy had gone silent, but soon it would echo with the sound of the final war between the Devourers of minds and the children of those who had died to stop them. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Humans were not originally from their blue world. They were the children of an ancient species that had died fighting monsters from another dimension. In cities around the globe, people stopped their daily activities to watch the emergency broadcasts. Commander Jake Morrison stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's government. Behind him, screens showed the genetic evidence that Dr. Nina Ross had discovered. The room was silent as world leaders tried to understand what they were being told. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake said, "we are the descendants of the galaxy's greatest heroes. Our ancestors sacrificed everything to create us, knowing that someday we would face the same enemy they died fighting." President Maria Santos of the Earth Federation spoke first. "Commander, you're asking us to believe that humanity's entire purpose is to fight these Vorthack creatures?" "I'm not asking you to believe anything," Jake replied. "The evidence speaks for itself. Our DNA contains genetic modifications designed specifically to resist the Devourers. We survived their attack because we were created to survive it." Dr. Lisa Park stepped forward. "We've also discovered something else. The genetic modifications in human DNA aren't just offensive. They contain dormant abilities that we've never accessed." She activated a holographic display showing human brain patterns. "Our ancestors built capabilities into our minds that we've never used. Enhanced mental focus, the ability to project our consciousness across space, even the power to link our thoughts with other humans." In the genetics lab on Titan, Dr. Nina Ross was working with volunteer test subjects to unlock these hidden abilities. Captain Holly Barnes had volunteered to be the first test subject, despite the risks. "Are you ready, Captain?" Nina asked. Holly nodded from her position in the scanning chamber. "Let's see what our ancestors built into us." Nina activated the genetic awakening sequence they had developed. Energy flowed through machines that stimulated the dormant parts of Holly's DNA. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Holly's eyes opened wide with shock. "I can see everything," Holly whispered. "The energy patterns in space, the quantum fields around the planets. It's like having new senses." Nina checked her readings. "Your brain activity has increased by 40%. You're using parts of your mind that were completely inactive before." "There's more," Holly said, her voice filled with wonder. "I can feel other humans. Not just their emotions, but their thoughts. Captain Adams is investigating another dead alien world right now. He's afraid but determined." Across the galaxy, Captain Steve Adams was indeed investigating another alien world, but he felt a strange tingling in his mind. For a moment, he could have sworn he sensed someone else's presence, someone far away but familiar. "Focus, Steve," he told himself, shaking off the odd feeling. He had work to do. His team had discovered something incredible on this world. Hidden beneath the planet's surface were structures that predated the alien civilization that had lived there. Ancient tunnels led to vast chambers filled with technology that seemed to be waiting for someone to activate it. Security Chief Dana White led the exploration of these underground facilities. "Captain, these machines are responding to our presence. It's like they recognize us somehow." Steve joined Dana in the main chamber. The walls were covered with crystalline formations that glowed softly when humans came near them. In the center of the room stood a device that looked like a control panel designed for human hands. "Dana, I want you to try activating one of these systems." But be careful. Dana placed her hands on the control surface. Immediately, the chamber filled with light. Information flowed into Dana's mind, not words or images, but pure knowledge. She understood what these machines were, and why they had been waiting. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking with excitement, "these are weapon systems. They're designed to be operated by minds that are immune to the Vorthack. Our ancestors built them and hid them all over the galaxy. Back on Earth, the awakening process was spreading. As more humans underwent the genetic activation, they began to discover abilities they had never known they possessed. Lieutenant Jim Foster found that he could sense the emotional states of everyone around him. Dr. Carl Hayes discovered that he could access ancient memories stored in his DNA. But the most important discovery came from an unexpected source. Amy Foster, who had been monitoring space sensors since the crisis began, realized that her enhanced abilities were picking up something that normal instruments could not detect. "Commander Morrison," she called from her station, "I'm reading quantum disturbances throughout human space. There are ancient systems activating everywhere." Jake looked at her readings. "What kind of systems?" "Defense networks that have been dormant for millions of years. They're coming online automatically as more humans awaken their genetic heritage. It's like our ancestors scattered an entire military infrastructure across the galaxy, and it's been waiting for us to claim it." Professor Kate Miller made the next breakthrough. Using her enhanced mental abilities, she was able to interface directly with the ancient quantum computers hidden throughout human space. What she found changed everything. "Jake, you need to see this," she said from her laboratory. "I've accessed the command systems our ancestors left behind. There's a complete battle plan stored in the quantum matrices." "A battle plan for what?" "For the war we're about to fight. Our ancestors didn't just create us and hope for the best. They studied the Vorthack for thousands of years before they died. They learned how to hurt them, how to defend against them, and most importantly, how to defeat them permanently." Kate brought up holographic displays showing the ancient battle plans. "The Vorthack feed on consciousness, but they have a weakness. Human emotions, especially courage, love, and the willingness to sacrifice for others, create quantum frequencies that are toxic to them." "Toxic how?" "When humans feel these strong emotions, especially when working together, we generate a type of quantum energy that disrupts the Vorthack's feeding process. Instead of consuming our consciousness, they get poisoned by it." Jake studied the battle plans. "So our ancestors designed us not just to resist the devourers, but to actually hurt them? More than that. According to this data, concentrated human willpower can create quantum barriers that the Vorthack cannot cross. And if enough humans focus their consciousness together, we can actually reverse their feeding process." The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just immune to the Vorthack. They were the perfect weapon against them. Every human emotion that other species had sometimes seen as primitive was actually a sophisticated defense mechanism. Commander Sam Mitchell returned from his investigation of the ancient space station with more pieces of the puzzle. His team had discovered records of the original war, including detailed information about Vorthack tactics and weaknesses. "The Devourers are not invincible," Sam reported to the assembled military leaders. "Our ancestors fought them for centuries and learned their patterns. The Vorthack are strongest when feeding on fear and despair, but they become vulnerable when faced with hope and determination." Colonel Alex Turner, who had been with Sam during the investigation, added his own observations. "The ancient records show that individual humans are moderately effective against the Vorthack. But when humans work together, sharing their mental energy, they become exponentially more powerful. As the truth about humanity's heritage spread, something remarkable began to happen. People around the world started to feel the awakening in their own minds. Construction workers in New York found themselves able to coordinate their efforts without speaking. Scientists in laboratories began sharing thoughts and discoveries instantly. Military personnel discovered they could anticipate each other's actions perfectly. Dr. Lisa Park documented the changes as they occurred. "We're witnessing the emergence of humanity's true potential," she reported. "We're becoming what our ancestors intended us to be, a species capable of thinking and acting as one unified consciousness when necessary." But with the awakening came a sobering realization. The ancient weapon systems were powered by human life force itself. The most powerful defenses required not just mental energy, but actual years of life from those who operated them. Jake gathered his senior staff to discuss this discovery. Our ancestors built these weapons to stop the Vorthack permanently, but using them will cost us dearly. Some of the larger systems require the operator to give their entire life to power them. So we're facing the same choice our ancestors did, Lisa said quietly. Save the galaxy, but sacrifice ourselves to do it. Not all of us, Kate corrected. The battle plans show that victory is possible without total extinction, but it will require some humans to make the ultimate sacrifice. As they spoke, reports were coming in from the edge of the galaxy. The Vorthack were moving again, their dimensional ships emerging from the space between realities. They had finished consuming the consciousness of 47 alien species, and now they were coming for Earth. But this time, they would not find defenseless prey. They would find humanity, awakened, unified, and armed with weapons their own victims had designed. The galaxy had gone silent, but was about to become very loud indeed as the final war between the devourers of minds and the children of heroes began. Jake looked out at Earth, where millions of humans were discovering their true heritage and preparing for a battle that had been planned before their species even existed. They had been created for this moment, and now it was time to prove worthy of their ancestors' sacrifice. The transformation of humanity was happening faster than anyone had expected. Within weeks of the genetic awakening, humans across the galaxy were displaying abilities that seemed impossible. Commander Jake Morrison watched from Earth's command center as reports flowed in from every human colony and station. "Sir," said Amy Foster, her enhanced senses now able to detect quantum patterns across vast distances, "I'm reading massive changes in human brain activity everywhere. It's like our entire species is evolving at once." Jake nodded grimly. Evolution was the right word, but it was evolution with a purpose. Every day, more humans discovered they could link their thoughts with others, share memories and knowledge instantly, and project their consciousness across space. They were becoming the weapon their ancestors had designed them to be. Admiral Ben Carter was restructuring Earth's entire military around these new capabilities. In the war room beneath the Pentagon, he met with his senior officers to plan humanity's defense. "Forget everything you know about traditional warfare," Ben told them. "The Vorthack don't fight with ships and guns. They attack minds directly. Our weapons need to be consciousness itself." Captain Holly Barnes, who had been one of the first to undergo the full awakening process, demonstrated what humans could now do. She placed her hands on a crystalline matrix that had been built using the ancient designs. Immediately, her consciousness expanded, reaching out to touch the minds of humans throughout the solar system. "I can feel everyone," she said, her voice distant but clear. "Every human from Mars to the outer colonies. We're all connected now like neurons in a vast brain." Dr. Carl Hayes had been working with the quantum crystals found in ancient ruins. He discovered that these crystals could focus and amplify human consciousness, turning thoughts and emotions into tangible force. "Watch this," Carl said to his research team. He concentrated on the crystal in front of him, focusing all his willpower into its structure. The crystal began to glow, and the air around it shimmered with energy. This barrier will be completely impenetrable to a Vorthack. Human determination becomes a physical force they cannot cross. But the cost of these abilities was becoming clear. Captain Ryan Brooks was leading the effort to establish quantum beacons throughout the galaxy, devices that would amplify the protective field generated by human consciousness. Each beacon required a human operator to link with it permanently, their life force becoming part of the defensive network. "We need volunteers," Ryan announced his crew aboard the UES Horizon. "Operating these beacons will mean giving up your normal life. You'll become part of the defense grid itself." To his amazement, his entire crew volunteered. Lieutenant Sam Parker was the first to link with a beacon. As the connection formed, his consciousness expanded to cover an entire star system, protecting it from Vorthack influence. But his body would never move from the beacon again. "I can see everything in this system," Sam reported through the quantum link. "Every ship, every planet, every human thought. It's incredible, but I'm no longer really Sam Parker. I'm part of something bigger." Dr. Kate Miller made a discovery that changed their understanding of the enemy they faced. Using her enhanced abilities to study the quantum residue left by the Vorthack, she found something unexpected in the patterns. "Jake," she called to Commander Morrison, "I found something important about the Devourers. They're not just monsters. They're victims, too." Jake joined Kate in her laboratory, where screens showed complex analyses of Vorthack quantum signatures. "What do you mean, victims?" "Look at these deep-level patterns. Beneath the hunger and the need to consume consciousness, there are traces of what they used to be. The Vorthack were once a normal species, but something happened to them millions of years ago." Kate brought up comparative data. They became parasites because they lost the ability to generate their own consciousness. Something damaged them, made them dependent on consuming other minds to survive. This revelation spread quickly through the awakened human network. If the Vorthack were not originally evil, perhaps there was another solution besides destroying them. But that would have to wait. Sensor readings show the Devourers were gathering their forces at the galaxy's edge. Commander Sam Mitchell had returned from his deep space reconnaissance with disturbing news. "They're not just coming back," he reported to the War Council. "They're bringing the consumed consciousness of every alien species with them. Somehow, they've turned our former allies into weapons against us." The reports from Sam's team painted a horrifying picture. The Vorthack had created an army of consciousness constructs, beings made from the minds of the devoured aliens, but twisted to serve the Devourer's will. "We detected Zephyrian thought patterns in their formations," said Colonel Alex Turner, who had accompanied Sam's mission. "But they're not the Zephyrians we knew. They've been changed into something that exists only to feed the Vorthack hunger." Dr. Nina Ross made another breakthrough. While studying the ancient genetic patterns, she discovered that the human modifications included one capability that had not yet been activated: the ability to reverse the Vorthack feeding process. "If we can generate enough concentrated willpower," she explained to the assembled scientists, "we might be able to free the consumed consciousness of the alien species, bring them back from whatever hell the Vorthack have trapped them in. But this process would require something unprecedented. Every awakened human in the galaxy would need to link their consciousness together simultaneously. The mental energy required would be enormous, and many humans would not survive the process." Jake found himself facing the same impossible choice that had confronted humanity's ancestors millions of years ago: save the galaxy, but at the cost of their own species' survival. "How many would we lose?" he asked Nina. According to the genetic programming, about half of all awakened humans would burn out their life force powering the reversal process. Maybe more. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Jake looked around at his senior staff. Lisa, Kate, Ben, Carl. All of them enhanced humans who become more than they had ever imagined possible. They were also all volunteers who would gladly give their lives to stop the Vorthack. "There has to be another way," Jake said. "Our ancestors didn't create us just to die the same way they did." Dr. Lisa Park, who had been quiet during the discussion, suddenly looked up with excitement. "Maybe they didn't. Jake, what if the real weapon isn't our willpower alone, but our ability to inspire willpower in others?" "What do you mean?" "The Vorthack have consumed the consciousness of 47 species, but they haven't destroyed those minds. They've imprisoned them. What if we could reach those imprisoned souls and awaken their own will to fight?" It was a radical idea. Instead of fighting the Vorthack directly, humanity would try to free their victims and turn the Devourer's own slaves against them. Kate ran the calculations quickly. It might work. If we could awaken even a fraction of the consumed consciousness, they would outnumber the Vorthack by millions to one. Captain Steve Adams, who had been establishing quantum beacon networks in the outer systems, reported something that supported this theory. "I've been detecting faint signals from the alien construct formations. It's like the original personalities are still there, buried under the Vorthack control." Security Chief Dana White, now serving as a liaison between human military forces and the ancient weapon systems, brought up another consideration. Even if we can free the alien consciousness, will they trust us? We're the species that survived while they were consumed. It was a fair point. Humanity would have to prove they were worthy of the sacrifice their ancestors had made, and worthy of the trust of the species they were trying to save. As the days passed, reports from the galaxy's edge became more urgent. Amy Foster's enhanced senses detected massive movements in the Vorthak formations. "They're preparing for something big," she reported. "I'm reading energy buildups that dwarf anything we've seen before." The final battle was approaching. The Vorthak had grown strong on the minds of an entire galaxy, and now they were ready to complete their conquest. But they would face an enemy they had never encountered before, a species designed specifically to resist them, awaken to their full potential, and armed with weapons powered by the most human of all qualities: the refusal to surrender hope. Jake stood at the command center windows, looking out at Earth where millions of humans were preparing for a war their ancestors had planned before Earth's sun was born. The galaxy had gone silent, but was about to echo with the sound of consciousness itself fighting for its freedom. The storm was gathering, and at its center stood humanity. The answer their ancestors had left for a question no one else could solve. The darkness came without warning. Amy Foster was monitoring the deep space sensors when her enhanced abilities suddenly screamed danger. "Commander Morrison," she called out, her voice tight with fear. "They're here." The Vorthak are emerging from interdimensional space. Jake rushed to the command center as alarms began sounding throughout the station. On the main screen, space itself seemed to tear open like fabric. Through the rifts came ships that hurt to look at, vessels made of living shadow that seemed to bend reality around them. "How many?" Jake asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Thousands," Amy whispered. "Maybe tens of thousands. They're materializing throughout the galaxy simultaneously." The Vorthak fleet was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Their ships were not built so much as grown from the consumed consciousness of entire civilizations. Each vessel pulsed with the trapped minds of billions of alien beings, their thoughts twisted into weapons of hunger and despair. Captain Steve Adams was commanding the first human defense fleet near the Proxima Centauri system when the Devourers arrived. From the bridge of his ship, the UES Defiant, he watched his reality split open and nightmare ships poured through. "All vessels, activate your consciousness shields," Steve ordered. Around him, his crew linked their minds through the crystalline matrices they had installed throughout their ship. Immediately, the bridge filled with a soft glow as human willpower became visible energy. Security Chief Dana White had volunteered to be the primary consciousness focus for their ship. As she placed her hands on the main crystal matrix, her awareness expanded to encompass not just the Defiant, but the entire human fleet. Through her, every human in the battle was connected. "I can feel them," Dana said, her voice echoing strangely as it carried combined thoughts of thousands of humans. "The Vorthak, they're hungry, so terribly hungry. But there's something else. Fear. They're afraid of us." The first Vorthak attack came as a wave of pure mental assault. The shadow ships reached out with tendrils of darkness that tried to pierce the minds of the human crews. But instead of finding defenseless thoughts to consume, they encountered something they had never faced before. "Now!" Steve commanded. The human fleet struck back not with weapons, but with concentrated emotion. Every crew member focused their willpower, their courage, their love for the species they were protecting. The crystalline matrices amplified these feelings and projected them as quantum energy that hit the Vorthak like poison. Where the human emotions touched the shadow ships, reality reasserted itself. The twisted metal began to straighten. The living darkness started to retreat, and most amazingly, voices began to emerge within the Vorthak vessels. "Help us," came a weak transmission in the Zephyrian language. "We are still here, still trapped inside." Dana's enhanced consciousness could perceive what was happening inside the enemy ships. "Captain, the alien minds are still alive in there. Our willpower is weakening the Vorthak control over them." The battle became unlike any war that had ever been fought. Human ships maneuvered close to Vorthak vessels, their crews pouring concentrated determination and hope into the crystalline weapons. With each strike, more alien voices joined the transmissions. "We remember," called an Altarian mind from within a shadow ship. "We remember who we were before the hunger took us." But the victory came at a terrible cost. Lieutenant Jim Foster watched in horror as entire human crews burned out their life force powering the consciousness weapons. The effort of projecting pure willpower across space was consuming the operators faster than expected. "Captain Adams," came a weak voice from one of the other human ships, Our consciousness matrix is overloading. We're losing our entire bridge crew. Steve felt each death like a physical blow, but he also felt something else. The sacrificed humans were not truly gone. Their consciousness was joining the quantum field that surrounded the human fleet, making their weapons even more powerful. Back on Earth, Jake Morrison was coordinating the global defense effort. Reports were coming in from every human outpost as the Vorthack attacked simultaneously across the galaxy. But the reports also brought hope. "Sir," said Dr. Kate Miller from her laboratory, "the consciousness feedback from the battles is incredible. Every time our people sacrifice themselves to power the weapons, they're freeing dozens of alien minds from Vorthack control." Colonel Alex Turner was leading the ground defense of Luna Station as shadow creatures began materializing on the moon's surface. These Vorthack foot soldiers were even more horrifying than their ships, beings of pure hunger that sought to consume human consciousness directly. "Open fire with standard weapons," Alex ordered his troops. "But remember, they can't be killed by bullets. You have to hit them with your mind." The battle on Luna's surface became a test of human will against alien hunger. Alex's soldiers discovered that their enhanced abilities allowed them to project their consciousness as weapons. A Marine's determination to protect his family became a sword of light that cut through shadow. A pilot's love for her children became a shield that no Vorthack could penetrate. But the most effective weapon proved to be human compassion. When Sergeant Tony Clark saw one of the shadow creatures hesitate, he reached out with his enhanced empathy instead of attacking. "I know you're in there," Tony said to the creature. "I know you're not really a monster." The shadow writhed and screamed, but Tony continued projecting understanding and forgiveness. Slowly, the darkness began to peel away, revealing the terrified mind of a young crystalline being who had been consumed weeks ago. "Thank you," the alien whispered before its consciousness finally found peace. Dr. Lisa Park made a crucial discovery during the battle. "Jake, the Vorthack aren't just feeding on consciousness. They're addicted to it. Our willpower isn't just hurting them. It's forcing them into withdrawal from their addiction." This explained why the shadow ships were becoming more erratic as the battle continued. The Devourers had gorged themselves on alien minds for weeks, but now they were encountering thoughts they couldn't consume. Instead, human consciousness was poisoning their feeding process. Commander Sam Mitchell was leading the defense of the outer colonies when he discovered something that changed the entire nature of the war. His enhanced abilities allowed him to perceive the quantum threads that connected all consciousness, and he realized that the consumed alien minds were not separate from the Vorthack. They were part of a vast network. "All ships, this is Commander Mitchell," he broadcast. "The aliens aren't just trapped in Vorthack ships. They're all connected to each other. If we can reach enough of them, we might be able to turn the entire network against the Devourers." The idea spread through the human battle network instantly. Instead of fighting the Vorthack directly, humanity began targeting their victims. Every projection of hope, every sacrifice of willpower, was aimed at freeing the imprisoned alien consciousness. Captain Holly Barnes, now permanently linked with the quantum beacon, served as a relay point for this new strategy. "I'm detecting massive changes in the Vorthack formations," she reported. "The alien minds are beginning to resist from within." The first sign of success came when an entire Vorthack battle group suddenly stopped attacking and began broadcasting in dozens of alien languages. "We are free," came the combined voices of Zephyrians, Altarians, and a dozen other species. "We remember ourselves. We remember our friends who died to save us." But freedom came with a price for the aliens too. As they broke free from Vorthack control, many found that their consciousness had been too damaged by the consumption process. They were dying, but dying as themselves rather than as slaves. "Tell our children," whispered the voice of the Zephyrian leader, "tell them we chose to die free rather than live as hunger." The battle raged for days, with human crews sacrificing themselves to free alien minds, and freed alien consciousness joining the fight against their former captors. Space itself seemed to be healing as reality reasserted itself over the shadow ships. But the Vorthack were learning too. They began to adapt, pulling back their most valuable prizes and concentrating their remaining forces. Reports came in of a massive enemy buildup at the galaxy's core. Their regrouping, Amy Foster reported, her enhanced senses tracking enemy movements across vast distances. All the surviving Vorthak are gathering around something big, something that's been hidden at the center of our galaxy. Jake felt a chill as he realized what this meant. The first strike had been successful, but it had only freed a fraction of consumed minds. The real war was about to begin, and it would be fought at the very heart of the galaxy itself. The Vorthak had tasted defeat for the first time in millions of years, and they were not going to accept it quietly. But they had also learned that humanity was not just another species to be consumed. Humans were the antibody the galaxy had created to fight the infection of the Devourers. The first strike had proven that the ancient plan could work. Now it was time to finish what humanity's ancestors had started. The enemy came for Earth like a plague of living darkness. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the command center as every sensor screamed warnings about the massive Vorthak fleet approaching humanity's home system. They had regrouped after the first battles, and now they were bringing everything they had left. "Sir," Amy Foster called out, her voice strained from maintaining constant awareness across multiple star systems. "The main Vorthak force is 3 hours out from Earth. I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. They've got something new." Through the quantum link that now connected all awakened humans, Jake could feel the fear spreading through Earth's population. But underneath the fear was something stronger: determination. Humanity had learned the truth about their heritage, and they were not going to die as victims. Dr. Lisa Park rushed into the command center with data that made Jake's blood run cold. The Vorthak have created something they're calling the Prime Devourer. It's not just one of their leaders. It's a fusion of thousands of consumed alien consciousnesses, all twisted into a single entity designed to consume entire worlds. The reports from Deep Space Scouts painted a horrifying picture. The Prime Devourer was not a ship, but a living thing the size of a moon, surrounded by shadow vessels that moved like antibodies around a disease. At its core burned the consumed essence of entire civilizations, all focused on one goal: the complete destruction of human consciousness. Admiral Ben Carter was coordinating Earth's defenses from the military command center. The planet was surrounded by quantum beacon networks, consciousness-powered shields, and more human willpower than had ever been concentrated in one place. But even he wondered if it would be enough. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Carter," he broadcast. "The enemy is bringing everything they have. This is not just a battle for Earth. It's the final confrontation between consciousness and hunger itself." Captain Ryan Brooks commanded the outer defense line aboard the UES Horizon. His crew had been enhanced far beyond normal human capabilities. Their minds linked not just to each other, but to the quantum fabric of space itself. They could see the Vorthak coming like a wave of anti-reality, consuming light and matter as they approached. "All ships, prepare for the impossible," Ryan ordered. "We're not just fighting an enemy. We're fighting the opposite of existence itself." But as the darkness approached, something unexpected began to happen. The quantum echoes of the alien species that had been freed in the previous battles started to converge on Earth's system. Dr. Kate Miller was the first to detect the phenomenon. "Jake, you need to see this," she called from her laboratory. "The consciousness we freed from Vorthak control isn't gone. It's gathering around our defensive network." On her screens, Kate showed patterns of quantum energy that looked almost like ghosts. The minds of Zephyrians, Altarians, and dozens of other species were somehow maintaining their existence even after their physical forms had been destroyed. "They're not alive in any way we understand," Kate explained, "but they're not completely gone either. Their consciousness is existing in the quantum field that surrounds human space." Lieutenant Jim Foster made the connection first. "They're here to help us. The aliens we freed, they want to fight alongside us." The revelation spread through the human consciousness network instantly. Humanity was not fighting alone. Every alien mind they had sacrificed to save was joining the battle as an ally. The consumed civilizations had found a way to continue existing, and they had chosen to stand with the species that had freed them. Captain Holly Barnes, permanently linked to the quantum beacon network, became the communication point between humanity and their ghostly allies. "I can hear them," she reported. "Millions of voices, all saying the same thing. We stand with the children of our saviors. But even with alien allies, the approaching enemy was beyond anything they had prepared for. The Prime Devourer filled space with its presence, warping reality around itself. Smaller Vortex ships swarmed around it like deadly satellites, each one carrying consumed minds of entire worlds. Jake faced the hardest decision of his life. Earth scientists had discovered one final weapon left by humanity's ancestors, the Omega Protocol. It was a device that could destroy the Vortex permanently, but at a cost that made him sick to consider. Dr. Nina Ross explained the weapon's requirements with tears in her eyes. The Omega Protocol requires a voluntary sacrifice of 90% of all awakened human consciousness. It would save the galaxy, but it would essentially end humanity as we know it. The choice their ancestors had faced millions of years ago was now before them. Save the galaxy by sacrificing themselves, or fight and risk total defeat for everyone. There has to be another way, Jake said, but even as he spoke, he could feel the approaching darkness growing stronger. Commander Sam Mitchell, now serving as a mobile consciousness node for the human fleet, reported something that offered a glimmer of hope. Sir, I'm detecting massive resistance from within the Vortex formations. The alien minds they still hold captive are fighting back harder than ever before. He freed alien consciousness, was somehow inspiring the ones still trapped to resist. Through the quantum network, the ghostly voices of dead civilizations were reaching their enslaved friends and giving them strength. Security Chief Dana White, coordinating the ground defense of Earth, saw the effect directly. Vortex shadow creatures that tried to materialize on Earth's surface found themselves facing not just human willpower, but the combined determination of dozens of species. The aliens are fighting alongside us, Dana reported as her troops engaged shadow creatures in the streets of New York. I can feel Zephyrian courage strengthening our shields, Altarian wisdom guiding our tactics. We're not alone anymore. But the Prime Devourer was still approaching, and its presence was beginning to affect reality itself. Space around Earth started to darken as the entity consumed light, matter, and even time. Plants began to wither as the life force was drained from them. Some humans collapsed as their consciousness was pulled toward the approaching hunger. Dr. Carl Hayes made a desperate discovery in the final hours before contact. Jake, I've found something in the ancient records. Our ancestors didn't just create the Omega Protocol as a last resort. They designed it to be triggered by unanimous consent of all conscious beings in the affected area. What does that mean? It means the weapon won't activate unless every thinking mind, human and alien, living and dead, agrees to the sacrifice. We can't use it unless our ghostly allies also agree to die permanently to stop the Vortex. The realization hit Jake like a physical blow. The ultimate weapon required not just human sacrifice, but a complete destruction of every alien consciousness they had worked so hard to save. It would mean erasing their new allies from existence forever. Captain Steve Adams, commanding the final defensive line around Earth, detected the first probing attacks from Vortex scouts. All ships, they're testing our defenses. The main assault begins in 30 minutes. As the enemy closed in, Jake made the hardest command decision in human history. Open a quantum channel to all allied consciousness, living and dead. I need to speak with every mind in this system. The communication network expanded to include not just human thoughts, but the ghostly voices of 47 alien species. For the first time since the Great Silence, the galaxy was filled with the voices of its lost children. My friends, Jake said, his words carried across dimensions to reach minds both physical and quantum. We face a choice our ancestors made millions of years ago. We can destroy the Vortex forever, but only by sacrificing everything we are and everything you have become. The response came not in words, but in a wave of emotion that touched every consciousness in the network. Determination, love, courage, and above all, hope. The alien voices spoke as one. We died as slaves. If we must die again, let us die as free beings choosing to save those who come after us. The vote was unanimous. Every human, every ghostly alien consciousness, every thinking mind in Earth's system agreed. The Omega Protocol would be activated when the Prime Devourer arrived. But as Jake prepared to give the final order, Amy Foster detected something impossible. Sir, I'm reading new quantum signatures at the edge of the system. Something else is coming, and it's not Vorthack. On the screens, new rifts in space began to open. But instead of shadow ships, what emerged were vessels of pure light. And from them came voices that had been silent for millions of years, the consciousness of humanity's ancestors, finally free to return from the dimensional prison they had built around themselves. The darkest hour had arrived, but with it came the possibility that the sacrifice might not be necessary after all. The creators of humanity had returned to stand with their children in the final battle against a hunger that had plagued the galaxy for eons. The return of humanity's ancestors changed everything. Commander Jake Morrison watched in amazement as ships of pure light emerged from dimensional rifts around Earth. These were not physical vessels, but manifestations of consciousness itself, the minds of the species that had created humanity millions of years ago. Children of our design, came a voice that spoke directly to every human mind simultaneously. We have waited so long to see you fulfill your purpose, but the time for waiting is over. The final battle begins now. Dr. Lisa Park was the first to understand what was happening. Jake, they didn't die completely when they created the dimensional prison for the Vorthack. They've been existing in the same quantum space, keeping the prison intact all this time. The ancestral consciousness began to merge with the human defense network. Jake could suddenly feel the weight of millions of years of knowledge and experience flowing into his mind. But more than knowledge, he felt their love, a parent's pride in children who had grown beyond their wildest hopes. The Vorthack are not evil, the ancestral voice continued. They are sick. Millions of years ago, they were healers and teachers, helping young species develop their consciousness. But they made a mistake that transformed them into the very thing they had sought to prevent. Through the quantum link, Jake saw the true history of the galaxy. The Vorthack had once been called the Shepherds, guiding new civilizations toward greater awareness and understanding. But in their desire to help, they had tried to directly share their consciousness with other species. The sharing process went wrong. Dr. Kate Miller realized as the ancestral memories flowed through her. Instead of teaching other species to generate their own consciousness, the Shepherds accidentally made them dependent, and then they became dependent too. The cycle had been horrific. The Shepherds needed to consume consciousness to survive, which killed the species they were trying to help. But without consuming minds, the Shepherds themselves would die. They had become trapped in a cycle of necessary evil that had lasted for millions of years. Aptine Steve Adams, fighting the approaching Vorthack fleet, suddenly understood why his weapons were so effective. They don't want to consume us. They're trying to, but part of them still remembers what they used to be. That's why human willpower hurts them so much. It reminds them of who they were before they became parasites. The Prime Devourer arrived at Earth with the fury of a dying god. The massive entity filled space around the planet, its presence warping reality and draining energy from everything approached. But instead of finding a defenseless world, it encountered something unprecedented, a unified consciousness network spanning multiple dimensions. Every human mind on Earth was linked together. Every freed alien consciousness added its strength to the network. The ancestral beings contributed their ancient wisdom and power. For the first time in millions of years, the galaxy spoke with one voice. Commander Sam Mitchell, now existing more as pure consciousness than as a physical being, served as the focal point for this vast mental network. Through him, the combined will of countless species reached out to touch the Prime Devourer. We know what you are, the unified voice said to the approaching entity. We know what you were, what you lost, and what you need. We're here to give you what no one else could, the chance to stop being hungry. The Prime Devourer's attack faltered. For the first time in eons, it encountered minds it could not consume. Human consciousness, protected by their genetic modifications and strengthened by alien allies, was like poison to its feeding process. But more than that, it was like medicine to the sick minds trapped within the entity. Captain Holly Barnes, permanently linked to the Quantum Beacon network, became the communication point between the unified consciousness and the confused Vorthack entity. I can feel them inside the Prime Devourer, she reported. Millions of corrupted shepherd minds, all crying out in pain and confusion. They remember what they used to be. The battle that followed was unlike anything the universe had ever witnessed. Instead of weapons and violence, it was fought with pure emotion and will. The unified consciousness projected not destruction, but healing, not hatred, but compassion, not victory, but redemption. You don't have to be hungry anymore. The human network called out to the Vorthack. We can teach you how to generate your own consciousness again. We can break the cycle that has trapped you for so long. Lieutenant Jim Foster, his enhanced empathy now spanning entire star systems, felt the moment when the first Vorthack mind accepted the offer. Deep within the Prime Devourer, a corrupted shepherd consciousness remembered its original purpose and chose healing over hunger. The effect cascaded through the enemy entity like a wave. As each corrupted mind chose redemption, it began to generate its own consciousness instead of consuming others. The process was agonizing. Millions of years of twisted hunger fighting against a memory of compassion and service. Security Chief Dana White watched from Earth's surface as the shadow ships began to change. The living darkness that composed their hulls started to brighten, reality reasserting itself as the Vorthack remembered how to exist without consuming others. But the transformation came at a cost. Dr. Nina Ross monitored the human consciousness network as it poured healing energy into the corrupted shepherds. "We're losing people," she reported grimly. "The effort of healing so many twisted minds is burning out human consciousness faster than we expected." Jake felt each death through the network. Human after human sacrificed their mental energy to heal the enemy that had tried to destroy them. But unlike the deaths in previous battles, these humans were not lost. Their consciousness joined a growing network of redeemed beings, human and alien together. Captain Ryan Brooks made the ultimate sacrifice when his ship was engulfed by a partially reformed Vorthack vessel. Instead of fighting, he opened his mind completely, allowing his consciousness to merge with the confused shepherd minds inside the enemy ship. "I can help them remember," Ryan transmitted as his physical body died. "I can show them what it feels like to create instead of consume." The Prime Devourer began to collapse on itself as the corrupted consciousnesses within it chose redemption. But the entity fought back, its hunger-based programming refusing to accept the change. It lashed out with pure consuming force, trying to devour the entire consciousness network before it could be healed. Colonel Alex Turner, commanding the ground defenses, felt the entity's final assault like a physical blow. All remaining forces pour everything into the network. This is our last chance. Across Earth and throughout human space, every awakened person gave whatever mental energy they had left. The effort was so intense that reality itself began to shift around them. The boundary between physical and quantum existence started to blur. Amy Foster, her enhanced senses now encompassing entire dimensions, detected the moment of final transformation. "It's working," she whispered. "The Prime Devourer is remembering what was meant to be." The massive entity stopped its attack and began to change. The darkness that had composed it started to brighten into something that had not existed for millions of years, a being of pure compassion and teaching, dedicated to helping others grow in consciousness rather than consuming them. "We remember," came the voice of the redeemed Prime Shepherd, no longer a devourer. "We remember our purpose. We remember why we existed, to help others become more than they were, not to feed on what they already are." Around the galaxy, similar transformations were taking place. Every Vorthack ship, every shadow creature, every corrupted consciousness was choosing redemption over hunger. The cycle that had plagued the galaxy for millions of years was finally broken. But the victory came with a revelation that would change the galaxy forever. Dr. Carl Hayes, his consciousness expanded beyond physical limitations, discovered the truth about the pattern of galactic extinctions. Jake, he communicated through the quantum network, the cycle of civilizations rising and falling. It wasn't natural. It was the shepherds trying to break their own curse. Every time they consumed the galaxy's worth of consciousness, they hoped it would be enough to free them from their hunger. But it never was, so they would go dormant and wait for new civilizations to develop. But why did they spare one species each time? Because deep down, they still remembered their original purpose. Each immune species was their attempt to create a cure for their condition. We weren't the first. There have been others across the eons. but we're the first that actually worked. The realization spread through the consciousness network. Humanity had not just survived the Vorthack attack. They had fulfilled a destiny that had been planned for millions of years by beings who had been trying to heal themselves all along, as the last of the corrupted shepherds.